General quarters, all hands man your battle stations.
Broadcasting live on WNN 1470 AM, 95.3 FM, iHeartRadio, and the World Wide Web. This is Make America Think Again with your Google blacklisted host, Tom Trento.
Danger, Will Robinson. Danger. No, Will Robinson. Danger.
Indeed, Google may be blacklisting us, which means if you wanted to find out about the United West in some news item, the United West, and you put a little ampersand and Iran, we don't show up.
Nothing.
They blocked us from being associated with any sort of news. Now, this may be over. We should actually check because, I'm getting notes here, black tie event. Yeah, we're going to a black tie event tonight. That's right. I forgot about it.
So the black flip-flops?
They what?
I got a black tie.
Oh, you put a black tie on. That'll work.
Okay.
We're going to an Operation 300 event, and we will report on that, not tomorrow, but next week. It's going to be a great event. It's in honor of Navy SEAL Aaron Vaughn, killed August 6, 2011. In an operation in the Tangi River Valley in Afghanistan. A bunch of SEALs. SEAL Team 6 got shot down 90 days after SEAL Team 6 killed Osama bin Laden, and a price went on his head. And this horrible situation of these SEALs, 30 Americans going down, plus a dog, Bart, revealed and exposed Obama's horrendous rules of engagement. And on today's show, I have an esteemed panel of counter-jihad experts, and we're going to talk about the rules of engagement that Donald Trump is employing in his prosecution of Islamic terrorists worldwide. And with us is Ken Abramowitz. Ken, how you doing?
Great to be here. Thank you.
Ken's a dear friend, runs a couple of organizations, SaveTheWest.com. Save the West, not a bad thing. We like the West. And Citizens United for National Security. Citizens United for National Security. We'll hear about those organizations in a minute. Tom Trento, your host, 5 minutes after 11. Live on WNN 1470, 95.3. Thanks for tuning in. We want you to start telling your friends and family and even your enemies. Tell your enemies about us, because we like when the enemies listen to us. We hope to engage them to make America think again. We got Midwest Dick. Are you back there?
Yes, I am. I'm actually looking forward to this conversation about the rules of engagement.
The rules of engagement and the options that Iran has, because we're taking everybody, all our experts here today, to the Trento War College, and we're going to serve as an advisory panel to President Donald Trump. And one of the ones on the advisory panel is Dr. Roni Wexler. You alive and well in the control room?
Nice being here, yes, indeed.
Why are you wearing my suit jacket?
Because it's freezing.
Oh, here's the big, tough Israeli warfighter.
Yeah.
Mark's in his underwear.
I'm in my flip-flops and underwear here.
Dick, can you get Ronnie some warm tea or something,
a little hot, yeah.
And a jacket, maybe?
We're going to give him a hug.
I'm going to give him a hug. Okay. Ron, there goes your reputation, your image in front of all these.
Thank you very much. I really needed it.
But it was cold, and I actually lowered the air conditioning. You keep it cold in here for, I don't know. Why do you keep it cold?
Because when I turn the lights on, it gets really hot.
Oh, that's right.
But we don't have the lights on today. So.
Yeah, because we're not a television show. We're a radio show at 7 minutes after. On a beautiful South Florida Thursday, Tom Trento, your host, Make America Think Again. Here's what we want to do. There's so much confusion and so much obfuscation, which is the same word as confusion, and so much complexity and so much division in the United States. It's very difficult to find out if you're the average American. We have average Americans listening. What is right, what is wrong on this whole Iran situation? So we're going to walk our way through this. We're going to do a little bit of a timeline And then we're going to look at the options that Iran has in the future. As of today, Thursday, the 9th of January, 2020, I don't know. Are things, gentlemen back there, are things still quiet in the Middle East, or any noise anywhere?
Well, I think they're going to get in trouble on this plane being shot down. I think that's my gut feeling is Iran's behind this whole. It's just a gut feeling. That's all there is that Iran's behind this shooting down of a plane just because it just went down so quickly and it just something doesn't smell right. It just doesn't smell right during the exact same time as the missiles went off, and nothing makes sense about this.
Yeah, the Iranian response. The Iranian response of missiles fired to U.S. bases, and a couple hours later, a commercial airline takes off Ukrainian airline and then goes down. It seems kind of bizarre, and there are all kinds of theories floating out there. Well, it either blew up on its own,
No, that didn't happen.
Or it was shot down intentionally or unintentionally. The black boxes, which are actually orange, have been found, so they'll get some insight. But the problem is Iran doesn't have the technical capability. I think it was a Boeing to do the forensic analysis necessary to put the pieces together, and no Americans or Westerners, experts are going to go to Iran right now and try to help them.
Oh, we'll send General Colt over there. He'll figure it out.
Yeah, exactly. So in any event, Ken, why don't you have expertise on the Middle East and national security, your organization, SaveTheWest.com. If you want to get in touch with Ken, go there. And Citizens for National Security, Citizens for National Security, a great group started by a friend, Bill Saxton, and Ken runs it now. What is your 1 minute? I know you like to break things into manageable chunks. Your 1 minute analysis of this standoff between the United States and Iran.
Okay. In 1 minute, Iran has declared war on America and Western civilization 40 years ago. And America's the great Satan, Israel's the little Satan. And Iran has promised genocide against America and Israel, death to America, death to Israel, and for 40 years, and has never been punished. So think of having a child, for example, who's 40 years old, and you never punish them for anything. You always just told them, okay, everything they did was wonderful for 40 years, and then after 40 years you spank them. They would be totally distraught that they were punished at the age of 40. And so Iran is probably rethinking some things of having gotten punished for the first time in 40 years. And they got away with murder, and a lot of murder for 40 years. And it's an indictment of our collective leaders for the 40 years to have allowed Iran to get away with murder, vow to take over the world, vow to kill everyone in America, vow to kill everyone in Israel, and they never got punished for 40 years. Hello. So they're probably rethinking their strategy right now, and I can guess, if you give me another minute or ask me another question, what are they going to do about it?
What are they going to do? Go ahead. Yeah, that lays the framework for what we're doing here today in the Trento War College.
Okay, well, so the question is, how do you take over the world? And get away with it. By the way, the world is full of people who wanted to take over the world. They never got away with it. So, and Iran is going to be a victim of that also. So they're not going to get away with it. But I'm just saying, from their point of view, you can basically kill everybody in the world, and then whoever's left will agree with you. That's the violent way to take over the world. And the other way to do it is culturally. You culturally invade their brains, so to speak, with mosques, books, television, radio, news, internet, and you culturally take over the world. And so Iran will pull those two levers. They're still going to want to take over the world. Now they're probably rethinking their military strategy to take over the world, and will probably emphasize their cultural strategy to take over the world.
All right. Tom Trento with Ken and Ronnie and Mark and Midwest Dick. Today we're going to try to make some sense. We will make some sense out of the Iranian situation in light of the United States. Ken laid out a very interesting and very effective context from which to understand this. Got a 40-year-old kid that we've let do all these crazy things. Now we're trying to punish him. Ron, going back 40 years, when just about now it's almost 41 years with the overthrow of the U.S. Embassy, and even going back earlier than that, initially the overthrow of the Shah, who was there since 67, the Shah Reza, he was there from 1967. You were living in Israel in those days. What was the relationship of Israel to Iran during the Six-Day War in 67, Yom Kippur War in 73? Where was Iran on all of this?
Actually, this is a great question, Tom. Iran and Israel were basically connected by the hip. Every Israeli company had a branch in Tehran. Tehran was built to a certain degree by Israeli builders. Banking in every facet of business, Tehran and Tel Aviv were connected. The Shah of Iran was a friend of Israel, and to a certain degree, being that Israel was a friend of the Shah, Israel became one of the Satans.
Tell them 11:30.
So Israel became so thorn in the eye of Iran. But I remember growing in Israel, already in the army, that there were friends of mine that were flying back and forth from Tel Aviv to Tehran, and people from Tehran coming to Israel. I can tell you that my personal feeling at the time was that South Africa, Persia at the time, Iran, and Israel were going to be the counter part of what Israel needed against the Arab world, against the Sunni Arab world, Muslims.
Wait a minute. Isn't Iran? Aren't they Arabs?
They are not Arabs. They are Shia Muslims, and their enemy is the Sunni. It's been known that the friend of Israel, being the Shia in Persia, would help Israel in terms of fighting those who came to annihilate Israel, which is the Sunni Arab nations around Israel. We live in a neighborhood that's basically Sunni, and Persia, Iran of today, is a little bit removed from that neighborhood. There are two countries in between Israel and Iran. So Iran was never considered an enemy, and never before we had a problem with Persia, Iran, until the Ayatollah came back.
All right, now this is very interesting, Ken Abramowitz. Ronnie, an Israeli, is laying out this amicable relationship, at least on a business end and seems a cultural end. Right now, we have the citizens of Iran yelling, death to America, death to Israel. Do you think, in your expansive knowledge and understanding of national security, geopolitical events, you monitor 40 or so various conflict points that the United States has, do you think it's possible to put this crazy genie back in the bottle and have a relationship, Israel to have a relationship with Persia, non-Arab Persians, even though they're Shia Muslims, to have a relationship that's amicable, not just on a business level, but citizen to citizen? Can the citizens of Iran, 80 million of them, stop hating Israel?
Yes. Israel and Persia, Iran, are natural friends, not natural enemies. they've been natural friends for several thousand years. They're both ancient civilizations. And by the way, America and Iran, Persians, are natural friends. And the Persians are very smart, hardworking people, and they share many of our values. Unfortunately, the top 10% or so of the country is a criminal organization, the largest criminal organization in the world, and the largest terror organization in the world. And so the question is, can the 90% of the Persians who are normal overthrow the 10% of the Persians that run a criminal organization? And the answer is yes, they will overthrow the leaders. The question is when. When we go, as an analogy, the Soviet Union took 70 years, or 3 generations, to collapse. Iran is in its 2nd generation of criminal organization rule. And so if you use the Soviet Union as an analogy, you'd say it might be 1 more generation, 25 years. My guess is Iran will fall in 1 or 2 or 3 years during the second Trump administration.
You really think so?
I think it has to, because knowing how to think like a criminal is one of the things I teach myself. Is because I know how to think.
What?
Like
You teach yourself to know how to think like a criminal.
I got stuff locked down now.
Put your
I'm locking
wallets,
stuff down.
everybody, in the control room.
Yes.
Okay, hang on to your wallets.
Well,
You're red teaming yourself in your own head.
Yes.
Okay.
Because I know how to think like an animal.
Okay.
In other words, when you go to a zoo, the lions are in a cage, and you say, "Nice lions, very nice lions. I'm glad there's a cage, and I'm glad you're in it, and I'm glad I'm not in it." Because we all know how lions think. So if the lions weren't in the cage, they think that we're lunch, and we couldn't dissuade them of that. So criminal organizations are basically human beings that behave like lions, and so their activity is actually very predictable. And so however, you cannot have a criminal organization run a country and get away with it forever. The Soviet Union showed you couldn't get away with it after the 3rd generation. So if I were a criminal organization like them, I need a nuclear weapon. I have to have a nuclear weapon for defensive reasons and offensive reasons. And so they're going to run and rush for a nuclear weapon, or they'll buy one from North Korea. And President Trump can't allow them, and has publicly said he won't allow them to have a nuclear weapon. So because they can't control themselves, they'll move forward for a nuclear weapon. They now say that they're not obliged by the JCPOA or the Iran agreement, which, by the way, they never signed. They never were obliged.
Never signed it.
They never were obliged to it, but now they're publicly saying they're not obliged to it. They'll go for a nuclear weapon, and President Trump doesn't know this, but he's going to have to blow up Iran. Nuclear sites.
All right, well, that's what I want to get into here, some of the logistical and theoretical projections necessary for...
Do you think that they do have...
hang on.
I've heard about the nuclear weapon.
Wait, hang on, Mark, hang on one second. I want to get into some of the logistics and theoretical calculations the United States and the West has to make to deal with this criminal enterprise that you're talking about. And before, Mark, you say something here, the audience needs to listen carefully to what Ken said, because he said there is some hope. You look at the historic record, and evil empires have fallen, evil countries, ones that we blew up, one with a nuclear weapon, Japan and Germany. Now they're friends. We share everything. We somehow got, and there was so much hatred and vilification, but the system, the foundation of the hatred, the emperor worship and all of that in Japan and Adolf Hitler, those systems have been taken out. Question I have, whether or not there's hope with Iran, is whether or not the Sharia, which is part and parcel of the Iranian constitution, can be changed or mitigated by people that feel if they do that, then their lives are over. Allah will disband them to the basement of hell. That's a question we'll touch on in a little bit. Mark, you had something there?
Yeah, I'm not 100% certain that they don't have a nuclear weapon already. Do you have any speculation on that or any information on that?
Well, hold that for a second. I want to back up for the audience at 23 minutes after 11. In a little bit, we're going to cut to Ben Goldstein in Israel with a quick special report on Ari Fuld, our friend who was killed in September of 2018. There's been a development on his case, and Ben happened to have been there the day of the murder of Ari. He was on site. So we're going to hear directly with that in a little bit. But let's go back to 1979. The Shah of Iran was, by the estimation of people in the Islamic world, he was a Westerner, he was secular, and he was decadent, but he also had a very vicious savant, the army that was controlling the citizens who were getting out of line. There's the overthrow. The Ayatollah comes in, Ayatollah Khomeini from Paris, hanging out in Paris. And then Jimmy Carter, remember what Jimmy Carter does? He brings the Shah over to the U.S. Remember why he brought him over?
Yeah, was it some cancer or something like
that? Yeah, cancer. So he brings the Shah over, and what do the Iranians do?
They revolted.
They did one particular thing in terms of the revolt. They had already revolted.
Oh, they brought the Ayatollah back.
No, the Ayatollah was back. Ayatollah was back.
The hostage captures.
They said, oh, okay, you want to help? You Americans want to help the Shah? Guess what? And boom. They, for 444 days, how many U.S. hostages were there?
52.
How many targets has Donald Trump listed for Iran?
52.
Yeah, the irony is amazing. Well, ever since that day, the Iranians have been involved, as you said earlier, Ken, or on tomorrow's show. As you said on tomorrow's show, the Qassam Soleimani and the Quds Force and all of those guys were exporting the methodology for world control, and it started right then with a whole litany of abuses. But we are now the Trento War College, gentlemen, and we have to advise the president on whether or not he should take out the facilities, the nuclear facilities, what his next steps are, and how successful this whole thing could be. So I've assembled our team of experts. Gentlemen, what's the first thing we need to tell the president? We're going to meet with him in a day. We got to get our act together. What are we going to tell him to do?
Well, do they not have a nuclear weapon? Because we were saying 3 or 4 years ago that it was going to take them like a year or two to get it. And so I'm not 100 now. Ken, are they? I mean, I think the president should know if they have a nuclear weapon or not. What do you think?
Well, you can build a nuclear weapon, which they haven't done, and you can buy a nuclear weapon. So they have close relations with North Korea. So one of the questions is, did they buy 1 or 2 or 3 nuclear, or 4 or 5, for all I know,
right,
nuclear weapons from North Korea? That would be the most logical country to have bought them from. Now, you also need a delivery system. You have to put them on a missile or an airplane. Their airplanes are antiquated. They're pretty good at missile technology because Iran and North Korea share missile technology. So they could well have one, but if the U.S. found out that they had one, according to President Trump's statements, he would be compelled to blow them up.
Okay. So the issue is in terms of the long game for the president. He needs to know whether or not they are operational with nuclear weapons. I'm going to cut to something here. While we're on the show live, Tom Trento at 11:27 in the morning, WNN 1470, 95.3. Today I have the Counter Jihad Squad. We have Ken Abramowitz, SaveTheWest.com, and Citizens for National Security. 2 organizations he runs. You can contact him through SaveTheWest.com. J. Mark back there, Dr. Roni Wexler, and Midwest Dick. All of us with a lot of experience on these issues. But what we're doing, we're trying to serve as an advisory panel for President Trump in terms of the next 30, 60, 90 days. And we've laid out that it's essential that he knows the operational capability of Iran regarding its nuclear program and its, whether or not the various elements of a deliverable weapon exist. But I'm also monitoring Iranian news right now. You didn't know that I could monitor Iranian news. Well, yes, I can. I'm reading FARS, F-A-R-S. It's their main news system. And it's in Farsi. So if you don't know Farsi, too bad for you. I happen to be a Farsi expert.
Our Google Translate.
Because all I do is cut out and then I paste. And there's a headline now on the FARS blog, a general. And according to my translation, it says, we could have designed the operation so that there would be 5 casualties in the first step, said the commander of the Army Air Force of Iran, who said dozens were killed and wounded in the Operation Martyr Suleiman. So in Iran right now, their headline is, we could have only killed 5 if we wanted to, but we've killed and wounded dozens. That's the message going out to Iran.
And that's what CNN was reporting too.
Hey, Ron, you're familiar with and that's what CNN was reporting. You're familiar with the Middle East. Are the Persians idiots, or do they not have access to the radio, or what's the deal?
Well, when a nation, when anybody in the Middle East would like to portray something that would save face, they would do it. I can tell you that being an Israeli soldier in 6 Days War, there was radio silence in Israel, and we as soldiers couldn't tell what radio broadcasts were broadcasting. And apparently in the Arab nations, they were telling everybody they are in Tel Aviv. They are already taken, Jerusalem and Haifa is being under siege. Now, it so happened that I was near Jerusalem and I didn't see any siege, and I didn't see any attacks on the mainland Israel. We obviously created a war that was designed to topple down the other armies in their lands. But they create stories, and that's for the consumption of their own citizens. They can't allow themselves to look like they are losers.
Right.
And if they are losers, they simply make up stories.
Baghdad Bob comes to mind.
Yeah, I understand that, but maybe 50 years ago, when there wasn't an iPhone, you could get away with that. But you would think today, with the vast immediate communication, that somehow it seeps into Iran. We'll get into that. But right now we have Ben Goldstein on the line, direct from Israel Live. Ben, you there?
Tom, I'm here. Thanks for having me again. I really appreciate it.
All right. Ben is an American Israeli, born in the United States, went to Israel, did his service in the IDF, and is becoming a very, very good friend of ours. He does some work with Jerusalem Jane, and they do these media reports together. But Ben also spends a lot of time with the troops out there. Ben, take 30 seconds for our audience. We want them to understand a little bit about what you do. And then specifically, we want to talk about our dear friend Ari Fould, who is no longer with us at the hands of a Muslim killer. And you have some firsthand knowledge on all of that.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. I was just recently on the Gaza border, meters away from Hamas, with a group of IDF warriors, officers, soldiers, paramedics, presenting them with some upgraded life-saving gear that they never will receive without myself and people like you and others stepping up and stepping in to help. So I fill in those gaps for them, and we save lives with the gear that we get these IDF warriors. And I've been doing that really since 2002, but more actively since the Gaza war in 2014.
Yeah, how is the Gaza border these days in light of the Iranian mess?
Look, things are definitely tense when we're watching events unfold in neighboring countries. But I think the general consensus here is that we have our own fish to fry. We know the local threat. It's nothing new to us. It's what our soldiers have been dealing with 24/7 for many, many years. Specifically, of course, since the disengagement when the Jewish people were thrown out of Gaza, torn out of Gaza, and Gaza was turned into the largest mass production facility for rockets and terror tunnels that this world has ever seen. So our soldiers down there are certainly tense, but they're not hiding in bunkers. They're out on patrol. They're scanning the environment. Thank God we have many, many men and women right now on that border, whether it's physically or with electronic means, keeping us all safe here in Israel.
Ben, we're reading reports that, and we know, but we're reading reports that Qasem Soleimani, who is a Persian, who's an Iranian, who's a Shia Muslim, somehow had a love fest with the Hamas Sunni Muslims to help them out in Gaza. Is there any truth to any of that?
Look, there's rumors floating around everywhere, but a lot of these groups are and have been working together in the past through back channels because a lot of them have the same goals. It's almost like fundraising platforms for different organizations. A lot of these organizations have similar goals, but they see this one pot of gold where they think that they have to fundraise all from the same one. And they have two choices. They could either kill each other or they could quietly work together to make things run a little bit smoother. And when it comes to destroying Israel and hurting America and our interests, not only here in the Middle East, but anywhere in the world, the evil that we know that is Hamas, that is Iran, that evil will not stop at any boundary in order to achieve its goals.
All right, you're with Ben Goldstein and Tom Trento here. It is 34 minutes after the hour, 11:34 in Florida. WNN 1470, 95.3. I got Ken Abramowitz. Ken is with us in the studio. SaveTheWest.com. SaveTheWest.com. You can go there. And Dr. Roni Wexler. We got Jay Mark in the control room and the Midwest. We got the whole team here. We got the Counter Jihad Squad on this beautiful Thursday. And Ben, we wanted to have you give us an update on Ari Fuld. When we were in Israel with Janine Pirro for the moving of the U.S. Embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, we came home in June of 2018, and then in September, all of us were shocked when we read that Ari was stabbed by a teenage Muslim jihadi. Now, is it true that you were in the area or nearby, or what's the situation with that?
Yes, I actually arrived on the scene around 15 seconds before an entire squad of IDF combat soldiers came running up to the scene. I happened to be heading in that direction in my patrol vehicle. I didn't know what to expect when I got there, but I pulled up as close to that teenage terrorist that I possibly could get. I got out of my patrol vehicle. I saw him laying on the ground with bullet holes in his arms. He was smiling at me, and his butcher knife that he probably took from his mama's kitchen drawer a few hours earlier was around 2 feet next to his outstretched arm. And then I turned and I saw bullet holes in the glass, and I saw a man laying on the ground being tended to by two paramedics. I didn't know at the time that it was my friend and neighbor, Ari Fuld, a very well-known, brilliant Israel defender and warrior and advocate for the Jewish nation and for freedom. All I knew is that I was in an active terrorist scene, and I didn't know what to expect beyond that. So I had to help control the soldiers. This was the first terrorist attack these soldiers had ever seen. I knew these soldiers because I give these specific soldiers gear constantly. And at that point, the entire world showed up. And little did any of us know who was still laying on the floor right now, bleeding out, our very close friend, somebody that we all looked up to and respected. Now, it's been a year plus since the attack, and it took the Court of Israel over this year to simply deliberate to understand if this teenage terrorist is actually a murderer or not. Part of the problem in this court case was that this teenage terrorist original lawyer, who he himself was a terrorist, and the IDF took him down and took others around him down who were directly responsible for murderous attacks on Israelis. So on the one hand, he's wearing the suit of a lawyer, of an attorney. On the other hand, he's directly responsible for the murder of Israelis.
Wow.
So here we are. Yeah, excuse me?
Yeah, I said, wow. I have one question for you. Then I'm going to open up for these guys here if they have any questions, because everyone here knew Ari very, very well.
Sure.
You're on the scene. You have all this noise, sirens going off, lights flashing, people running around. You don't know if there's going to be a secondary attack. You don't know if there's a bomb somewhere. It's a very tense situation. And you're running around trying to see, what you need to be doing. At what point did you come to realize that it was your friend Ari who was laying there bleeding out?
Well, after I ran back to my vehicle, I gave the two paramedics that were on scene, must have been shopping there, I gave them one of my advanced Stop the Bleeding trauma kits. One of the most fascinating things that occurred on that day was an Arab Christian friend of mine from Bethlehem who works at the local grocery store, the Rami Levy. I had given him one of these advanced Stop the Bleeding kits because I knew it's not a matter of if, it's just simply a matter of when this type of attack will happen. Little did I know that we'd all be meeting in this one spot, a Palestinian, quote unquote, an Arab Christian from Bethlehem, a friend of mine laying on the floor, myself and other paramedics all coming together to save a life in Israel. Only did I know when I started receiving phone calls, because all we had heard was that a man in his 40s who made Aliyah, who was an immigrant to Israel from America, a pro-Israel advocate on social media, that he was killed at the Gush Etzion Junction. And a lot of my friends thought that maybe it was me that was laying there. And I started receiving phone calls. And only at that point did I hear the rumor that it was Ari Fold, and none of us could quite possibly believe it.
Wow. All right. Before we let you go here, I want to open it up. Ken, Ronnie, Mark, anyone have any questions for our buddy Ben, who we will meet when we're there? We're coming out to see you guys in May, Ben. Dr. Roni Wexler has heritage study programs. We bring a national security team out each year. This is a special election year mission to find out what the thinking is in the country of Israel regarding what type of politicians are necessary in the U.S. to help protect the interests of the Middle East, people who are Western-minded and peace-minded, particularly Israel. That's our purpose for the mission, so we'll see you for sure. But anyone have any questions for Ben regarding Ari he's on the ground right now in the midst of all of this. Yeah, Dr. Roni Wexler.
Hi, Ben.
Hi, Dr. Wexler.
Well, we actually wanted to come last time to the cemetery and visit the tombstone, but it didn't work out. Perhaps next time when we come, we'll get together. But my question is twofold. Firstly, how's the family doing? And the second question, yeah, I remember we raised money and we're hoping go ahead.
They really are. I'm sure, from what everybody knows, it's been a year of struggle, a year of absolute devastation. There's very little closure amongst the family. They have to put on a strong face, but there's very little closure. They want justice and they're not seeing it.
Yeah, absolutely. I can understand that. My second question, your mayor was advocating that he doesn't want to see separation walls and protection walls erected between your city and the rest of the areas there in Judea. How do you take to that, and what's going on since the last time you saw him?
Well, I don't personally live in Efrat, but I am aware of what you're saying. I live in the area, not specifically in Efrat. I do know that the community adjacent and let's call to the east or behind Efrat, Wadi Nis, there is no wall in between them. And there is no terror emanating from the village of Wadi Nis. As a matter of fact, many of the residents that I know specifically and very well there, they will call the IDF themselves if they see a suspicious Arab vehicle in their streets, because there's one common denominator. They don't want to lose the good life they have. They don't want to stop driving 2019 BMW SUVs and having 4 flat-screen TVs in their 7-bedroom home. Now, that's not the rule. That's the exception to the rule. Most villages surrounding us, where I'm standing right now, overlooking the Judean hills, is flying either the Fatah flag of genocide or the flag of Hamas. So either way, I'm surrounded by enemies. They know it, and I know it. What the mayor of Efrat would say to bring walls down in between communities, all I can say is, if we take it on a precedent based on what occurred prior to Oslo, I do recall Bethlehem being a place of peace prior to the Oslo Accords. Now, the demographics have changed. It's now 90% Muslim instead of 90% Christian. So the demographics in the entire area have changed. There is no wall around Hebron. There's freedom of access to any terrorist right now to take an AK-47 from his brother, who's a Palestinian police officer, and show up at any community, including mine, at any hour of the day in order to attack. There's not one checkpoint or wall stopping them from doing that. So the only real wall in the area that I live in here is the wall that was put up in between Bethlehem and Route 60, the main north-south route that goes back as far as ancient Judea. And that was put up because the Tanzim, the young terrorists, used to come up to the road in the early 2000s with AK-47s and kill Jewish drivers and their kids from their house on the way to Jerusalem to go to work or school. So there is actually almost complete freedom of access in between the Arab areas and up into the gates of the Jewish towns. So I'm not quite sure which wall they're referring to. The walls that were put up during my time in the security services were put up to prevent or funnel at least the flow of traffic to prevent suicide bombers from getting into Jerusalem and other areas. And it proved to be quite successful. So his opinion is his opinion. That's mine.
No, I understand. I fully appreciate your answer, and I think some of our audience got a little bit of a picture that we can actually live in peace there. And the Arabs in your communities or surrounding your communities, in order to maintain their lifestyle, will do anything to cooperate and do the job that's needed of them. That's reassuring. I hope to see you when we come to Israel in May, and we definitely, if we don't come to Hebron, we would like to see you in Jerusalem and share some of your thoughts with our group.
It would be an absolute honor, and we'd have a great time doing it. I look forward to it. Thank you.
All right, Ben, we will see you in May of 2020, and if anyone else is interested in coming with us, Jerusalem Day 2020, JerusalemDay2020.com. You can go there. Our whole website is there. You can sign up. You can contact us for more information. Anything else for Ben, or we'll move on? Ben, we'll see you probably in a week. We'll give you a call for another update. Appreciate it, Ben. Stay safe.
Wonderful. God bless you guys from Israel. Thank you again. Good night.
All right. That was Ben Goldstein in Israel, young guy doing great work. Ken, I got a question for you at 11:46 in the morning. Tom Trento, your host, WNN 1470. Ben said that the security walls help protect people, and my question to you, Ken, is this recent response by President Trump taking out one of the main agitators in the Middle East. And this is for the War College too, but I want Ken to weigh in first. Do you think that Fatah, Hezbollah, the Hamas, Islamic Jihad, any of these groups now will take a step back after seeing what Donald Trump has done with the top leader in the world of terrorism?
Well, bear in mind the difference between Israel and the U.S. in terms of mindset relative to war. The Israeli mindset, not for all the last 70 years, but let's say in the last 5 years, has been, let's fight a little war every single night. It won't even get in the newspapers. We'll arrest this bad guy here, that bad guy there. We'll blow up some Iranian site in Syria or Lebanon or Iraq. Not even announce it. Just do it every single day. Meanwhile, the U.S. has these big airplanes and these big ships and these big submarines, and it doesn't want to use them. To win a war, you have to do two things. You have to have a lot of weapons, and you have to have a desire to use them. Israel has a lot of weapons and a desire to use them. America has a lot of weapons and no desire to use them. And so it was only in the last month or so that President Trump has used military might in the utilization of military might, not just the show of military might, by blowing up that site on the Iraq-Syria border where I think about 25 people were killed, and then of course, Soleimani. So Israel's enemies know that they're going to get blown up every single night. And so I won't say they're intimidated, but I would say they understand what Israel's going to do, whether they're the Palestinian Authority, Hamas, Hezbollah. Israel has a quiet understanding, not because something was written down, but simply because the IDF will blows up bad guys who either before or after they kill Israelis. So Israel's been in this situation longer. Also, one of the terms that's very interesting that President Trump uses, and others, endless war. We have to stop endless war. Well, when I look at Israel, Israel's been fighting every day for 70 years.
For about 4,000 years, maybe.
Well, I was going to say that. I was going to then say, and they were fighting for 100 years before the official establishment of the state, and they were fighting 3,800 years ago, since Abraham announced that paganism is a false narrative.
Right.
Okay, so I say to myself, endless war, wait a minute, Jews have been fighting an endless war since the beginning of Judaism. And Israel's been fighting a war before the state and then obviously during the state. America has lost that understanding. By the way, we were fighting endless wars for the 200 years before, 150 years before America was established. We understood that. And, but now we've forgotten it. And so therefore it's politically unpopular to fight an endless war. Whereas in Israel, if you say, I'm the prime minister, I'm going to fight a little endless war every single night so we don't have to fight the big war, they go, yeah, he's our guy. Yeah. So the American public is just in la la land relative to understanding the forces of evil.
Well, it even gets more interesting, Mark, because right now, as we're speaking, the United States Congress on the House side, through Nancy Pelosi, wants to limit the chief executive officer, the commander-in-chief, limit the capability of the commander-in-chief to do these unilateral assassinations. Give us, you served in the United States military. What is your quick overview on that?
Like Obama, like she's trying to limit Obama. This is purely partisan. It's all it is. Obama assassinated dozens of terrorists with Tomahawk, with indiscriminate missiles. Okay, he had little, compulsion to not use big bombs in tiny areas. And yeah, it's all politics, or making everything politics.
Well, let's give the president some help on this in our Trento War College here. He has been trying to defend this imminent concept. Soleimani had an imminent. It was an imminent situation where there was, and he made it sound like it was going to happen any second. And with the briefing yesterday, we have two Congress people, Mike Lee and Rand Paul, fuming. The intelligence did not indicate any imminence. We shouldn't have done this. And now, because of this, Nancy Pelosi wants to limit it. What advice could we give the president on the imminence factor from a legal point of view?
From a legal point of view?
Yeah, it's a tough question. I know the answer, but it's a tough question.
Well, no, it's actually not a tough question because if you look at precedent of other presidents, that's the basis of legal justification is precedent. What did other presidents do? And you go all the way back to the founding of our country, all the way back to 17, Did the president have a right to go out and quash the risk rebellion? Well, yes, he did. Was there a war? Was there anything? Did he have the right to go send out ships to in the Barbary Coast to go fight them without declaring a war?
And again, for our listening audience at 11:52, Tom Trento, your host, trying to make sense out of the Iranian situation, and a lot of sense can be made out of it. I think one point we can leave with the president on this assassination situation where the president's trying to defend the imminence of the attack by Soleimani is that the president's not getting it right here. We have a law against assassinating political figures. Right? We have a law against that. We're not supposed to assassinate other political leaders. That's the United States law.
Right.
And what the U.S. Congress, or some of them, are saying is, oh, he assassinated a political leader. But the question is, was he a political leader? Was he an elected political official?
He was a specially designated global terrorist, leading a specially designated global terrorist regime. If they're going to prosecute him for that, then they have to prosecute Obama for killing bin Laden. Was bin Laden a political leader? Obviously. Was he a political leader? Obviously. Did he lead a religious organization? Obviously.
Bin Laden was not an elected official. And
neither was Soleimani. He was not elected. He was
Anwar
appointed.
al-Awlaki, not an elected official. You can go on and on. Al-Baghdadi, who was wasted not too long ago, he was not an elected official in any sense. These people self-appoint themselves. And it gets a little cloudy with Islam because it's both a religion and a political system. But that's a very, very good argument. Soleimani was a military combatant. He was designated by the United States as a very, very bad guy. Put anybody else in there. Let's say that was Osama bin Laden,
right,
who landed at the Baghdad airport. We hadn't killed him yet, and he was hit by a U.S. missile. I mean, would people be saying, "Hey, what are you doing? You can't kill that guy"?
Yeah.
He's
CNN
so
would.
important.
CNN would.
CNN would. Yeah. But the advice we can give the president is get off of this imminence thing. You don't need a justification for killing an enemy combatant who is designated as a terrorist by your own country. You can kill him anytime you want. That's what you're supposed to do. So our advice to the president, move away from imminence. You don't need justification to kill the guy. His existence is justification to be killed. Ken, your thought on that?
Well, my analogy is when I'm dealing with evil criminal people, I've mentioned that I think of them like animals. So imagine a lion escapes from the zoo. A 40-year-old lion's been eating humans for 40 years, and he walks into this room, and someone says, let's kill him. Say, well, how do you know that he was imminently going to kill us? How would you know? Excuse me, he's a lion. That's what lions do. When they're hungry, they eat whoever is in front of them. So by definition, it's imminent. But that's not the key issue. The key issue is he was a designated terrorist. And also President Trump is commander-in-chief. The House of Representatives is not commander-in-chief. It goes back to the point that the Democratic Party is trying to undermine the Constitution and Bill of Rights because the Democratic Party is not the Democratic Party. It's the Socialist Workers' Party combined with the Communist Party combined with Islamist parties. So it pretends it's the Democratic Party, but it's no longer the loyal opposition. So yes, they want to get rid of the Constitution Bill of Rights, and therefore they chip, instead of just declaring that I don't believe in the Constitution Bill of Rights, they chip at different elements of it, and they just thought that this was an example to show that the president is not commander-in-chief. He is commander-in-chief.
Absolutely. And don't forget, just a couple of days earlier, Soleimani attacked the U.S. Embassy in Baghdad. Ronnie, we got 1 minute. I got a question to you. What are Iran's options?
Well, they have all the options in the world. They just don't adhere to what we're asking them to do and continue the war to their proxy. But to your other question is, and we started the program with this, is rules of engagement. And as a soldier, I can tell you that in order to win a war, you must declare that the enemy is there to be killed. And if you don't bring him to its knees, then you don't win a war. And to have a war and call your lawyer or your Congress to ask permission to do the job, then you lose. You don't win. We're here to win because we're the good guys.
Look, ladies and gentlemen, Tom Trento, your host, with a distinguished panel here. We got Midwest Dick, we got Ken, we got Ronnie, we got Mark. All of us ask from the bottom of our hearts, for you to understand what we just talked about and understand where the Democrats would be and how they would lead if they were. Can you imagine Mayor Pete Buttigieg right now being the commander-in-chief, how he would respond? How about Elizabeth Warren? How about Bernie Sanders? Do you want to hand over the life of your children, your children's children, your wealth, your existence, your freedom to individuals that sound like the propaganda arm of the Iranian government? And as Roni just said, the rules are so critical to kill bad guys. They now want to have meetings to determine if the guy's bad enough to kill and if he is imminently going to kill or he'll kill tomorrow. Please, November 3rd, 2020, critically important date, about 300 days from today. You need to vote. You need to vote intelligently. You need to vote for people that love this country and understand the rules of engagement. Mark, you had a thought?
Yeah, I'll take it out right there. What would George Washington do? What would George Washington do?
You got it. See you all tomorrow. No, actually, yeah, we'll see you tomorrow, Friday the 10th.